Over the past 3 years, I have been absolutely struck by the film camera bug, and this year was no different. I probably acquired more film cameras this year than I have in my whole time shooting film, and I did that with good reason. Number one, I love geeking out about the old cameras. I love shooting them. I love going and hunting and finding them at yard sales and thrift stores and antique stores. But also, too, I wanted to have the ability to pass those along to somebody else whenever I was done with them, whether that be through somebody purchasing a film camera from me or me gifting them a film camera. I just wanted to share the joy of it with others, and so today I want to run through some of my pickups from this year. Also, before we get too far into the video, if you stick around for the end, I'm going to give information on how you can win this camera. This is my Yashica Elite 105, my favorite point and shoot film camera, and this camera has brought me many good memories, but again, I want to pass it along to someone else. So if you're interested in the giveaway, stick around to the end and you can learn how to win this camera. First category of film cameras that I want to dive into is medium format, and primarily 6x6 with one exception. The first one I found this year is the Yashica 44, and this is basically referred to as the baby gray. It's kind of the Yashica version of the Rolleiflex baby gray. This shoots 4x4, 127 film, which is pretty hard to come by. And really my plan with this camera, once I get it functioning fully, is to turn it into a 35mm sprocket rocket or panoramic shooter. Gonna take a little bit of work. This one has a sticky shutter and somebody gave it a nasty drop. So yeah, this is a project for 2025. The first 6x6 TLR that I got this year was my trusty RicoFlex, and this camera is pristine. I got this from an antique store in Sevierville, Tennessee. Was able to work the owner down a little bit on the price, but this camera has, again, given me so much joy. Absolutely love the 6x6 format, and this was really the one that opened my eyes because it was the first functional TLR that I bought, as to how fun 6x6 could be, and now it's so ingrained in me from shooting 6x6 this year that in 2025 I do plan to put out a photo book that is strictly 6x6 medium format photography, so be on the lookout for that. But yeah, the RicoFlex, this is a knockoff of the Rolleiflexes, but I say knockoff not in a bad way because this thing is built like a tank. It functions perfectly, and I use it very regularly. I use this camera quite a bit for photos, so love this thing. The Rolleiflex, and I have a video on this camera specifically because this camera has such a meaningful story behind it. I was able to find this in an antique store here in Greenville, Tennessee, and the story behind it, the history with this camera, I'll link the video somewhere and you can go kind of look at that and see the beauty of this camera, not just the camera itself, but the story behind it. But this Rolleiflex has been incredible for me. This is probably the most fun that I've had in photography all year is shooting this camera specifically. Number one, it's a conversation starter. Anyone who sees it hanging around my neck typically will walk up and ask me what the heck it is and whether or not it actually works or if it's just a giant medallion. I can assure you it's not a medallion, and this camera has, again, brought me so much joy, some of the things that I've been able to capture with it. And this will probably be the camera that I use for the aforementioned photo book. I may throw in the RicoFlex as well for a couple of things, but the Rolleiflex Automat, this was my favorite pickup all year. This thing changed the game for me with my photography. And the last medium format TLR that I picked up this year was this gorgeous Yashica A. Now, I've not been able to shoot this A yet because unfortunately it has a little bit of a sticky shutter, but the body is in immaculate condition. I actually got this one from an estate sale online, crazy enough, but gonna send this off to have it CLA'd. Probably will shoot a little bit with this camera this year. My main goal with this camera is I would love for somebody to pick this up as their first TLR. The Yashica Letter series, as I call them, are wonderful beginner-friendly TLR cameras. They deliver great results and they're easy to use. So that was the Yashica A. And that's kind of my TLRs. The only other medium format camera that I got this year was actually gifted to me from my Uncle Gary, and this is a Belfoca folding camera, and I've actually got a video coming out about this second week of January, I believe, second or third week of January. So stick around for that. I ran a test roll through this camera, got some interesting results. But yeah, this was a gift from my Uncle Gary, and it is the only 6x9 medium format camera that I own. It also shoots 6x6, which is kind of cool. Thanks, Uncle Gary. This was a great gift, an unexpected gift, and this camera is very challenging to shoot with, but I love it. I love the challenge, and I love going out with things that, you know, present a challenge. It definitely makes for a good experience, and hopefully it makes me a better photographer. Get that back in there. So that's my medium format collection. This next category is kind of a crowded one. I acquired more 35mm cameras this year than I thought that I ever would in my lifetime. But again, I wanted to be able to pass them along to somebody else. The 35mm format is obviously the most affordable and the most accessible way to shoot film. But this one may take a little while to get through. But again, I just want to show you with excitement some of the cameras that we were able to dig out and pick and find this year. I'll start with my favorite, and that is the Pentax K1000. If you watch any of my videos, you'll know that I picked this camera from a potter in North Carolina, and this camera has been such a joy to shoot with. This is my go-to when it comes to 35mm, is the Pentax K1000. This camera is incredible. It's fully mechanical. It also has a very accurate light meter, but anytime I want to test a new film stock, or anytime I just want a 35 that I know is going to go and work, I reach for the K1000. Incredible camera. Go watch the video on how I actually acquired this camera. It's a pretty cool story. Next, we have a couple of Minolta XG7s. This blackface one I actually got in the estate sale with the Yashica A that you saw earlier in the video. Unfortunately, this one has succumbed to a power switch issue. Pretty common with the XG7s. When they work, they're great, but they have some known common issues. Same thing with my Silverface XG7. I think I ran 2 rolls of film through this camera, and then the power switch ended up breaking. Most of these little guys do suffer from some capacitor issues, or they have the power switch issue, but have plans to repair these, get them back in working order, because again, they're super lightweight, super fun to shoot with, and when they're working, they work great. So that's the XG7s. This duo was also a combo deal that I got at a yard sale, and that is the Minolta Maxim 3000. This is basically a giant SLR point and shoot. I've ran a couple of rolls through this camera. It's so easy to use. I actually think that I could hand it to my 7-year-old and he could absolutely fire through this. This was the honey from that pick though, a Pentax MX. And if you know anything about the MX, this camera was essentially designed to compete with the Olympus OM system because it's so small, so lightweight, and it's basically a baby K1000. This one suffers from a little bit of a sticky shutter. I'm gonna send it off for CLA because I want this to be basically my daily 35mm SLR. It's a little smaller than the K1000, a little bit lighter, and it actually has a self-timer. So pretty cool. Again, honey of a pickup. This camera right here came with a boatload of lenses, 70-200, a 28mm prime, just a good pickup as far as this one goes. So MX, if you know anything about the Pentax MXs, you know that this is a very sought after camera. Thankful to have this one. On the small and lightweight note, I also, at a yard sale, picked a Nikon FG20, which is the stripped back version of the FG. It has no program mode, but this little guy right here is such a blast. I actually take this one to class whenever I go to teach film class to our local school. And the students love this camera. It's easy to use. It gives great results with this little 50mm on the front. And yeah, this is another one that was designed to compete with the Olympus OM system. So Olympus had it going on back in the day with their small, lightweight bodies. FG20, a blast to shoot with, super fun. In the rangefinder category, we have the Yashica Electro 35 GSN, and this camera was picked a little bit after I got my Rolleiflex, but from the same location. This camera is one of the most fun rangefinders I've ever shot with. It basically reminds me of shooting with my X Pro 2, except for its film. So rangefinder on this is bright, it's accurate. The only thing that I don't like about these guys is the shutter button has such a long throw, it sometimes throws me off. Fun camera to walk around with, obviously retro because it is from the 70s, and people ask a lot of questions about this camera, which I love. I love it when a camera is a conversation starter when I'm out and about. And I'll round out my 35mm class pretty quickly. This is a Minolta X370. If you know anything about the 370s, they are tanks. I love this camera. It's fun to shoot, fun to work with, very easy to use. So X370, that was actually a gift from my buddy Tyler. We have a Canon AL1, the last A-series body that Canon made, and the first body that they made with any sort of autofocus. And essentially it's more of like a focus assist rather than autofocus. Unfortunately, this camera has the battery door issue that these are commonly known for, so hoping to get that repaired and get it firing soon. Finally, my Canon Rebel 2000. I picked this camera at the same yard sale that I got the Nikon FG20 at, and boy is this thing a blast. I took this camera to a trip with my son and my father-in-law to Nashville to watch the Packers play, and this camera is so easy to use that I found myself shooting it like a digital camera, which was not good for the film situation because I blew through a lot of film. I've used it in a dirt track racing environment, again, just to get a very aesthetic, vintage aesthetic look with some of the stuff that we were shooting. But Rebel 2000, if you know, you know. I want to go through these in kind of the order that I acquired them. The first one that I acquired this year, which really fed the addiction, was this beautiful, beautiful Land, SX70 Land. Now, this is the top 3. Unfortunately, with the Land cameras, this is probably the least desirable because it doesn't actually have a focusing prism. You basically set your focus based on estimated distance. Nonetheless, though, the results that I've gotten from this camera have been super fun, and I love the retro styling, love the folding that this camera does. It basically goes flat so that you can stick it in a large bell-bottom pocket, but still pocketable nonetheless. Next up is just the OG Polaroid Land. This is from the 70s. I actually got this from my neighbor. Shout out Miss Kathy. She gave me this when they were cleaning out an old house for an estate sale, and she knew that I'm into cameras. She gave it to me. This one's a keeper just because I appreciate Kathy giving this to me. But this little dude's fun. Probably the most simple of the Polaroid Land cameras, but it's cute. Love the retro design, and yeah, it's a fun little camera. Next, we have the Polaroid Impulse AF, and this camera is truly fun AF, especially with the design. This is probably the most modern looking 80s camera that you could have gotten back when this camera was put out. Has the cool little pop-up flash. This one has the autofocus system, which is the sonar autofocus system from Polaroid. It's not the most accurate, but again, for fun points, this camera takes the cake. I love the design of this camera. Probably the coolest design from Polaroid, in my opinion. These also came in a plethora of different colors. There was a turquoise version, a purple version, I believe, and then this blue-gray version. Also a forest green version, which I would love to get my hands on. But yeah, Impulse AF, super duper fun camera. Not as consistent with the results of some of the others, but still fun to hang around the neck and a great conversation piece. The Spectra, which is the Kevin McAllister Home Alone edition Polaroid camera, and I actually thrifted this from Goodwill. Very, very cool design. You have all of these controls on the back, which is not really common with a lot of Polaroids. Unfortunately, though, with the Spectra system, Polaroid does not make Spectra film anymore. So in order to shoot this camera, you have 2 options. You can either take the chance and buy some expired Spectra film, which I don't recommend. I've seen some horrible results from people who've done that. Or you can 3D print an adapter for 600 speed film, which I have done. I've not tested it in this camera though, so as soon as I can get some time and put the adapter in and shoot some 600 through it, I would love to share those results because the design of this camera is so sleek, so modern, and I love it. It's a very cool design. Don't know what I'll do with this camera long term. I've not even shot anything through it to test functionality, but figured for $7 and it came with a case and the OG manual, really couldn't pass that up. Probably the most consistent Polaroid camera that I've picked has been this One Step 600, which I got from our local antique store. Shout out Greenville Antiques. This camera has actually found a new home and it will be going to its new respective owner, which is one thing that I love about the instant film cameras is anybody can pick one of these up and use them, and they are great for documenting family trips or any memories that you just want to have that retro nostalgic feeling. I'm pumped for the person that's getting this camera because it's brought me a lot of joy with my family, and I can't wait to see what they're able to capture with it. The cool thing with this specific Polaroid is it actually has the close-up lens magnifier so that you can actually get closer to the people that you're taking pictures of for portraits, or it has a landscape as well. And the pop-up flash is just super cool. It charges as soon as you pop it up and take your picture, so very cool. Love this 600. Can't wait for the new owners to have it. And my most recent Polaroid pickup this year has been the Pronto Land, and I actually picked this one from an estate sale. This was a little doozy of a camera. I was never really privy to the Pronto series, but it shoots SX70 film, not 600, which is wild because it looks like a 600 camera. But this one has autofocus or manual focus. It has that same sonar system that Polaroid was known for back in the day. But this is a very sleek little design. It actually has a 1/4-20 thread, which a lot of Polaroids don't have, so that you can set it on a tripod, and I love the results that I get from this camera. One thing that I've been able to do is shoot 600 film through my 70 film cameras by using an ND filter, and the ND filters that I recommend are from Retrospect. They actually go over the film pack, and I can put a link for those down below. That's not an affiliated link, it's a product that I've bought with my own money, and I love them. I think they work great. And 600 film is a whole lot easier to get a hold of than SX70 film. So again, little Pronto Land, picked from an estate sale. I'll probably keep this one. This will take the place of the 600 that's going to its new family. I love the design of this. I love the red tab on the button. I just think it adds like a little, almost like a Nikon F4 look, if this could be considered the F4 of Polaroid cameras. Nonetheless though, very cool little pickup here in 2024. The last class that we're going to talk about is the 35mm point and shoot, which again has been such a joy. Point and shoot cameras are making a resurgence. People are loving them because they're easy to use. This one right here is the Canon SureShot Supreme, also known as the Canon Auto Boy. Picked this one at an estate sale. So far I've ran 2 rolls through it, and it's actually got a roll in it right now. This camera right here though, again, is one of those, if you know, you know. The Auto Boy is very underrated, very underappreciated by some, but revered by others. This camera will be a great camera for a beginner, and I plan to pass it along at some point in time in 2025 after I get a little bit more fun out of it. Next is this Olympus Super Zoom, and there's a story behind this camera because I picked this at an estate sale where I showed up an hour before it was supposed to open. Unbeknownst to me, that trip was also going to be the trip where I picked my Rolleiflex, because while I was waiting for the estate sale to open, I popped over to my local antique store, and that's where I picked the Rolleiflex, which, much to my wife's detriment and the bank account's detriment, went for a point and shoot, came back with a Rolleiflex and a point and shoot. But Super Zoom 70, not used this one yet. I love the design of it though, and the way that it opens and closes. It's clamshell open, which powers it on and off. Can't wait to run a roll of film through this bad boy. Another fun point and shoot that was gifted to me from my neighbor, the same neighbor that gave me the Polaroid, is this Kodak Star 735. Not actually been able to use this camera yet, but this is a camera that I can definitely see being tossed in the bag for our next beach trip or our next family outing. So simple to use. You literally turn it on and go. There's no focusing needed. It's basically a set zone focusing system. And yeah, can't wait to run a couple rolls through that. And finally, the last point and shoot, and really to finish this video up, is the Yashica Elite 105. This was my introduction to point and shoot cameras. I thrifted this camera, and it has delivered more consistent and fun results than any camera in my arsenal. I've had this on family trips, I've had it on work trips. It's such a conversation piece because whenever you whip it out, it's dad mode, or dad camera mode. To the core. This is a dad camera, and a camera that I fully expect to bring somebody else a lot of joy, which is why I want to give it away to one of you. Now, there's a few things that are needed in order to win this camera. Number one, you have to be subscribed to the channel. Secondly, I would love to know down below in the comments what your plans would be with this camera, what you would shoot with it, where you would take it, and yeah, I'd like to know that just for curious reasons. Thirdly, I would like to have your Instagram handle in the comments below as well, because once I do my drawing on January the 15th, I need to reach out to you via DMs to let you know that you've won the camera. So yeah, that's kind of it. In order to win this little guy right here, I can't wait to see the joy that it brings somebody else. And with that, I want to thank you guys for another year here on YouTube. This year for me has been so much fun. We've been going wild with projects. I've not been as consistent as I wanted to, but I thank each and every one of you for sticking around, staying with me, all the comments, all the feedback that I've received. Really cool. It's a really cool thing. As you know, I love this community, and I look forward to 2025 with you. Again, don't forget to do the things in order to win this camera. I want to give this camera away, and I think that's it. Y'all have a good one, and we'll see you in the next.